All right, let's do this. Let's take a look at what I would do, asterisk, in the 2025 offseason if I was running the Seattle Mariners. And that asterisk is, so last year I did one, and I came at it from two different ways, which was probably a mistake. I'll own up to that. It was not only something I thought was realistic, but also a, if I had my way type of thing. And because of the latter, more than anything else, I got absolutely destroyed. Like, shared on Reddit, shared on a bunch of sites about how big of an idiot I am, how I'm not a realistic person, how I don't deserve to be on this planet. No, that didn't happen, thank goodness. But there was some nasty stuff and about how it wasn't worth subscribing to this website, and yeah. And one of the things that I got absolutely just clobbered on was my suggestion that I would trade George Kirby for Juan Soto. How's your night going? Hope it's going pretty darn well. Love George Kirby, but yeah. Yep. So mostly because I don't feel like being a dreamer this time, more than I don't. Look, I can take constructive criticism. I don't like getting it's not fun. It's not fun at all. It's not good for your mental health. You can say I'm fine, corn cob it up, but, and look that reference up if you don't understand what I'm talking about. It still hurts. It still hurts. But I am willing to take constructive criticism, and I want to hear your opinion. So when you're done watching this video and you hit like and you've already subscribed, or hopefully you have, but if you haven't, hit subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are and what you would do. What would you do if you were the Seattle Mariners? But I am coming at this from a much more realistic outlook in terms especially of payroll. Because two things. Number one, we know the Seattle Mariners are not going to expand their payroll by a significant amount. Number two, we also know that when we dream, shoot high, aim high. Yeah, I don't feel like yeah. Yeah. The nicest way of saying this may not be your favorite offseason. But I do think the Seattle Mariners can do some stuff to turn themselves into a World Series contender without breaking the bank. And I'll just point this out right now. There is no signing Juan Soto on this. There is signing a major free agent, but there's no Juan Soto. There's no Corbin Burns. There's no Roki Sasaki. There's a couple of guys, but let's just get that out of the way, because and that's where the asterisk comes from. It's what I would do if I had the Seattle Mariners budget. That's where we are. That's where we are. Real quick, Simply Seattle, check them out. Code Mollywatt15, link in the description. Thank you so much, Simply Seattle, for your support over this year, last year, Mollywatt Monday for a very long time. Can't appreciate it enough. www.simplyseattle.com. All the great Seattle sports stuff that you need. Link in the description. But again, simplyseattle.com, MOLLYWHOP15. Okay. Step one. This one hurts my heart. I'm trading Luis Castillo. Just saying it out loud hurts more than typing it. I'm trading Luis Castillo. I'm trading from my position of strength and knowing that, unfortunately, Luis Castillo's salary doesn't correlate with the Seattle Mariners' long-term and short-term plans. It should. There's no reason that you should have to trade Luis Castillo, and you don't. You don't. But there is an opportunity presented with Luis Castillo because, look, yes, he has the lowest trade value of any of your starting pitchers because of the fact he's already getting paid. The fact that his clock is not only started, He's the oldest Seattle Mariners starter and a guy who's making close to $25 million. So here's what I do. And boy, this is risky to actually say names because this is where people get real nasty. But you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. I'm trading Luis Castillo to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And in return, I'm getting Gavin Lux, Nick Frasso, and Edgardo Henriquez. So Gavin Lux hasn't worked out so far. Like in terms of being he was the top overall prospect in baseball by a significant margin not that long ago. And there's a good chance he's a platoon player, and there's a very good chance that the power that he showed, not really coming out of high school when he was in Wisconsin, but more so as a minor league player, I don't think he is that 25 to 30 homer guy. But I think he can be a 15 to 20 homer guy while playing a really good second base, a cost-controlled second base, which is, something we can't ignore. And I think that he's going to hit for average and get on base at a strong mark while stealing some bases as well. Gavin Lux can be a building block piece still. I would love to have Gavin Lux as a Seattle Mariner. I hate that it's going to cost you Luis Castillo. Nick Frasso, not long removed from being one of the best starting pitching prospects in baseball, a guy who probably isn't helping you in 2025, but I think can be a helper in 2026, 2027, and that's going to matter because it's hard for me to say this starting pitching core staying together as much as I'd love it to. I think you're going to see pieces moved off here and there because of the way pitching works and the way salaries work. And then Edgardo Henriquez, I think, has a chance to be a really strong member of your bullpen. So you get your starting second baseman, platoon, I think, with Dylan Moore. Can't do it with Josh Rojas because Josh Rojas can't hit lefties at all. But Dylan Moore as your backup second baseman or as your utility second baseman. Nick Frasso as a chance to be maybe in your rotation in 2025, but more of a 2026, 2027 guy. And Henrique has a chance to be a really strong member of your bullpen. Okay. So you've cleared about $24 million with that deal. Okay. Step 2, you trade Mitch Haniger and $10 million along with Ben Williamson to the Yankees for Jose Trevino. It's going to take eating a lot of salary to get somebody to be interested in Mitch Haniger. We went over Mitch Haniger in the positional stuff, and he just doesn't have a lot of value. I could see him having some value to the Yankees because, number one, he's still a great clubhouse guy, and number two, the Yankees really struggled in the postseason with their bench options. And Mitch Haniger, based on the stuff that we talked about last week, or 2 days ago, Mitch Haniger still hits the ball hard. Mitch Haniger was a little bit unlucky last year. And while he was dreadful against left-handed pitching last year, the sample size of his career suggests he'll be better. So Mitch Haniger does serve somewhat of a role there. And even if he doesn't, they get a solid, if unspectacular, prospect in Ben Williamson, and the Mariners get their backup catcher. Jose Trevino, I think, is a perfectly cromulent backup backstop. Not the starter. That's Austin Wells. They have some other guys who can easily replace Jose Trevino. So I think on paper, this one makes sense. I'd love if, if it was instead of trading $10 million, it's like 5 or 6. But there's $10 million gone, and there's $30 million shaved off your payroll. We're going to shave a little bit more. We're going to trade Mitch Garver and $6 million to the Cincinnati Reds for cash considerations. I just didn't see enough for Mitch Garver to suggest he should be on the team at $12 million next year, not with what their payroll is projected at. And I picked the Reds because, they could use the backup backstop. I think his offensive profile plays well there. Whatever team. And you may have to eat more than 6. I just don't think Mitch Garver makes sense on this team. So I ship him. All right. So that saves about $37 million. We're going to add a little payroll now, but it's not going to be much. This is where I'm just preparing for the worst, but I think it'd be a great move. And I think it's one that makes sense for both teams. I'm trading JP Crawford. I'm trading Emerson Hancock. And I'm trading Ty Pete to the Toronto Blue Jays And no, not for Vladdy Jr. I'm trading it for Bo Bichette. And I can already hear the screams. I can already hear the what are you talking about? I can already hear the not so niceness. But I think you're being silly because Bo Bichette is not long removed. And when I say not long removed, I mean not long removed from being one of the very best young infielders in baseball. He was dreadful last year. Dreadful. And if he was good, he wouldn't be on the market. If he was good last year, I mean, wouldn't be available. Not even a shot. But he is. And I think it's an opportunity. I just want to pull up Bo Bichette's Savant stats real quick to compare. Sorry, I know there's going to be a weird edit there, but I just hit pause too soon. I mean, this guy last year had an OPS not below 7, definitely below 8, below 6, 599, and not that small a sample size. I believe it was 96 games, 336 plate appearances, so whatever that adds up to. And all of his stats are bad. Outside of whiffs and strikeouts and hard hit percentage are all fine. An expected batting average of 257, which is not good, but certainly better than the 225 he put up, right? And he was an above average defensive player, outs above average. Arm isn't great, but still plays at shortstop. And he's 26 years old, right? 26. Let's look at what Bo Bichette was in 2023. Expected batting average of 312. That's in the 98th percentile. Expected slugging of 502. That's in the 89th percentile. Average exit velocity 90.2, well above average. Hard hit percentage of 44.9, well above average. Now, chase rate, he swings at a lot of pitches outside the zone, and he always is going to. And he's not going to draw a ton of walks. He actually showed more patience this year than I think the previous years. But Bo Bichette has elite talent. Bo Bichette has the ability to be a top 5 shortstop for a very long time. And here's the thing. Reports are that you can probably get him. It's not going to be easy. And I would guess that my offer is a little light. My guess is you probably have to move one of the top 100 prospects. Somebody like a Harry Ford, maybe Tyler Locklear, and someone else on top of this. But I'd be willing to do it because the Mariners need to chase ceiling. The Mariners need to chase ceiling, and Bo Bichette's ceiling competes with anyone. I mean, at this point last year, we were talking about Bo Bichette becoming one of the next great stars and performing like it for a large portion of his career. He took a step back last year. It's not unheard of. And he dealt with injury. I would take that chance. And I know everyone loves JP Crawford. I love JP Crawford. I'm proud of my son. Bo Bichette is so much better of a baseball player than Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette is so much better of a baseball player than JP Crawford. So much better. Younger, better defender, more power. You know, their approach, very different. But I'll take the success path that Bo Bichette has, even with that chase and even with the lack of walks. I just think he's a really, really good player. And I think he's available. And I think you could get him for a package like this. It would make sense for Toronto. You get your stopgap shortstop. You hope he reverts back to the 2023 frame or 2023 form, excuse me. Pretty darn solid player. Emerson Hancock gives you a back-end starter, and Ty Pete gives you enormous upside. But I'm willing to move a Ty Pete because of the depth the Mariners have in their infield prospects. He's not as good as Colt Emerson. He's not as good as Cole Young. He's not as good, potentially, as Felton Selston. He's not as good as Michael Arroyo. So I think this one makes sense. I can already hear you saying, no, it does not, and that's fine. But I do. And I would love to see Bo Bichette as a Seattle Mariner. All right, step 4, probably the most unrealistic, actually, even though the Bo Bichette stuff is, yeah. Step 4 is sign Willy Adames. And if you can't sign Willy Adames, sign Christian Walker and trade for Key Brian Hayes. Willie Adames has everything the Seattle Mariners should be going for. He has a winning pedigree. He has success. He was phenomenal last year. And it's not like Willie Adames is 32. Let me pull up Willie Adames' age real quick to make sure he's not 32. 29. And you're talking about a player who by batting run value was in the 92nd percentile of all hitters. Expected slugging was above the 84th percentile. Barrel rate was in the 81st percentile. Sweet spot 84th percentile. Plenty of bat speed. Expected weighted on base average of 344 while playing strong defense. And look, I just traded for Bo Bichette, but it's already come out that Willie Adames is willing to move off the position. And while he is a good shortstop, I think he would be an elite third baseman. Plenty of arm strength, plenty of range, and then some to handle third base. Put him at the hot corner, and I think he's one of the best third basemen in baseball. Really good shortstop. But it's come out that he is willing to play elsewhere. Now, there are already offers from the Dodgers, from the Mets. I think the Mariners are probably going to get priced out on Willie Adames, and there's question marks about how much they'd be interested anyway. But if you make the moves that the Seattle Mariners did prior, that pays for Willie Adames by itself. And then some. And then some. So, go get him. Show me that you care. Go get a Willie Adames, a guy who would be a legitimate MVP candidate in a lot of years, if not for the fact that, Shohei Ohtani and Francisco Lindor were just stupid. But Willie Adames is that difference maker type of guy. And this is me complimenting the Mariners like I often do, but maybe not as much as people would like or think, or both. Willie Adames doesn't have to be as good as he was last year to be a valuable player. And people are going to look at 2023 and see a 717 OPS and 24 homers. He got off to a horrific start. Willie Adames has been a consistent option. You can probably get him for 29 years old, probably get him for 140, something along those lines. Might have to overpay a little bit and go 150. Worth it. Worth it and then some. And you're still ahead of the curve for salaries because of the moves you've made. I just think that would make so much sense. So if you can't get him, I'm signing Christian Walker. He's becoming my everyday first baseman. Massive Christian Walker fan. Think that there is at least 2 or 3 more years there of him being a well above average, offensive bat. On top of that, he is also one of the best defensive first basemen in baseball. Talking is hard. I want to host a radio show someday. Maybe I should actually get good at this. Really, really good defender at first. On top of the fact that he can hit. He'd be your third hitter. We'll talk about that in a second. And you still have a need at third base if you do that. And I think Ke'Bryan Hayes is somebody who makes sense as a buy low candidate because he was a solid offensive player in 2023. He's only 27 years old, and he's always going to be a terrific defensive player. And defense matters. Look, I want them to bash the baseball. Of course I do. But I still even think Ke'Bryan Hayes is a better offensive player than Josh Rojas, obviously. I think Ke'Bryan Hayes, and again, if you make the moves that I'm talking about, you're talking about Ke'Bryan Hayes being your 8th or 9th hitter. Totally fine with that, especially if he plays the defense that he's played throughout his career. So I prefer the Adames option, but sign Christian Walker and trade for Ke'Bryan Hayes is not a bad one either. Step 5, re-sign Justin Turner to a 1-year deal. I want Justin Turner for a couple of reasons. Number 1, he's still a productive hitter. Number 2, I think he is one of the best clubhouse dudes in baseball. Need it. Especially if you're trading J.P. Crawford and you're trading Mitch Haniger, who are considered 2 of the leaders in that clubhouse. Bringing back Justin Turner makes an awful lot of sense to help that clubhouse. I will honestly be surprised if they don't bring back Justin Turner at this stage. The only way I think you're not bringing Justin Turner back is if you're going with with Josh Rojas as your third baseman and you sign a Pete Alonso or Christian Walker. Because then I don't know if Justin Turner has a fit. I'd still want him as my bench bat, but it's harder because there's no defensive versatility there. He's a first baseman, and he's not a great first baseman anymore. Not terrible, but he's essentially a DH. And I don't hate him as your DH. In fact, we'll talk about that in a second. But I prefer him as my platoon first baseman with Luke Raley. Changes a little bit if they sign Walker, but I still want him back even if they sign Walker because, well, we'll talk about it in a sec. And then step 6, you've traded Luis Castillo. You have traded Emerson Hancock. Your starting pitching depth isn't looking great. I'm going a little bit quirky and taking a chance on making Jeff Hoffman a starter. And I'm signing him to, I don't know what the contract would be, but I think he makes a ton of sense for the Seattle Mariners. Jeff Hoffman has starter background, drafted out of East Carolina, one of the, not first, but early on in my MLB draft coverage time. Jeff Hoffman was one of those guys, potential first overall pick, slipped a little bit because of bonus demands and a little bit because he didn't have a great junior year. And it hasn't worked out as a starter yet. But he's moved to relief. And I think the reason why I think I'm confident in giving Jeff Hoffman a chance to start is, number one, I've seen what he has become as a reliever, and it's not a two-pitch guy. He uses all 4 of his pitches. So the arsenal is there. The arm strength is certainly there. Is the command there? I don't know. But I'll take my chance on that as the 5th starter for the Seattle Mariners. And if Jeff Hoffman can't do it as a starter, you move him to relief, and you know what Jeff Hoffman can do in relief. It's very similar to what Atlanta did with Reynaldo Lopez. And, for every Reynaldo Lopez, somebody brought this up on Blue Sky to me. Blue Sky, everybody go there. Don't go to that other website. Go to Blue Sky. Do whatever you want, but I'm on Blue Sky now. Somebody brought up that, yeah, there is the Reynaldo Lopez. There's also the Jordan Hicks, who it hasn't worked out for as a starter. If Jeff Hoffman has to go to your bullpen, oh well. Go trade for a 5th starter. You've got the prospect depth. You haven't spent a ton of money. You can go get another 5th starter. It's so much easier to go get a replacement for that. And knowing what the floor of Jeff Hoffman is, elite relief pitcher, pretty nice. So you sign Jeff Hoffman. And I think you're set. Let me go over what your lineup is with my plan, okay? As I scroll down. Should have hit pause, but I didn't. All right. Assuming they sign Willy Adames. They're not going to, but assuming they go with that plan. This is how I would line up the Seattle Mariners. Center fielder Julio Rodriguez. Yep, I want Julio leading off. Talked about it a bunch. Feel free to ask me why if you need to. Shortstop Bo Bichette. Third baseman Willy Adames. Catcher Cal Raleigh. Left fielder Randy Arozarena. First baseman Luke Raley. Second baseman Gavin Lux. Designated hitter Justin Turner. Right fielder Victor Robles. I kind of like Robles hitting 9th as that second leadoff guy. You could justify moving him up. Totally fine with that. But I just think it makes sense and puts a little less pressure on him. Or if you sign Christian Walker and you do the Brian Chase trade. Center fielder Julio Rodriguez, and then you go Rodriguez, Bichette, Walker, Raleigh, Randy Arozarena. Those all the same position. DH Luke Raley. Second baseman Gavin Lux. Third baseman Brian Hayes. Right fielder Victor Robles. Ideally, I would have Raley in left, and I would have Randy as the DH. It sounds like there's issues with that. So, it's fine. Randy Arozarena is not a great outfielder, but he's athletic enough to get the job done. And then your bench is Josh Rojas, Dylan Moore, Jose Trevino, and Leo Rivas is who I would have as my other guy there. Maybe a little light on outfield in terms of depth, but the fact Dylan Moore can play out there, the fact Luke Raley can play out there, I feel pretty confident. Your rotation, I would go 1 through 5, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, George Kirby, Brian Wu, and Jeff Hoffman. Your bullpen Andres Munoz, Matt Brash, Gregory Santos, Colin Snyder, Gabe Spire, Taylor Cicetto, Henriquez, and JT Chargois. I think that's a really good team. Is it a World Series contender? Don't know. I don't think so. Is it a division winner? I actually think it is. I think that would win the division. And could it advance? Heck yeah, because of that rotation. Sure, you lose Luis Castillo. Sure. You still got Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, George Kirby. Jeff Hoffman has a chance to be really good, I think, as a starter. So yeah, that's what I do. And I don't think it's unrealistic in terms of the payroll. I don't think any of the trades are unrealistic in terms of what they'd have to give up to get those guys. I think none of those trades will happen, but it's my plan. It's my way of showing that the Seattle Mariners can realistically make this team better and not break the bank. I'd prefer they break the bank. I'd prefer John Stanton to be a billionaire and spend like a billionaire should. But that's not going to happen. And if you want to argue none of this is going to happen, fine. But I have to put content out there, baby. And I do think that this team could be pretty darn good. I wish it could be great. And maybe it could. If Gavin Lux takes that step forward, if Victor Robles is the same guy we saw all year, if Julio takes that big step forward, if Randy Rosarina is more consistent, there's a lot of what ifs here. But all of those guys, it's not, we've seen all of them have not just success, major success at the highest level, particularly the pitching. I mean, that pitching staff would be, and it's only adding one dude, and you're getting rid of a really good starter in Luis Castillo. I think you compete with anybody. I think you can compete with anybody. So yeah, give me your thoughts. Please be nice. I don't know. Just be nice to a guy who's going through things, being old, whatnot. Please hit like. Please hit subscribe. Give me your thoughts. We'll be back next week with a bunch of Mariner recap stuff or season recap stuff. Thanks.